And good morning, everybody. Take a look at actual no shit live Cameron in living color. Well, I mean, he's still a white boy, but there he is.
Yeah, right here. Even wearing a shirt with a collar.
All right.
Yeah, I figure if I'm going to be on here, we're gonna do this right, baby.
Indeed. All right. So, and Cameron usually is calling in from his phone. He's actually sitting at the machine today, and because he's been calling in from his phone since before we started using the Restream setup, he's getting to actually play with the Restream chat app that I use to monitor your chats. Normally in the morning, if he's sitting still, not driving somewhere, I'm sharing the screen with him so he can see the chats, but he's got no direct interaction with it. So he's geeking out a little bit over some of the stuff that the chat app is capable of. So we're having fun with that. And tell him the other thing.
Yeah, so download Restream, sign into it, and it was just going through different things, and popped over to Facebook to close it, and immediately I had an ad for Restream in my Facebook feed. Have never had it before, ever, never. Only downloaded Restream this morning and got signed in so that I could pay attention to the chat, and then boom.
And like when he says only downloaded Restream this morning, he's talking like 15-20 minutes ago. Right. So it was right then.
Oh yeah. Yep. So
that actually leads me. Dad. Hey, good morning, Sergeant Major. Dad asks if I'm streaming on PocketNet. Not yet. Okay, so I'm glad you asked. So it's WTFCCPNN Day, and we're going to have to be a little careful about how we deal with it because of the topics that the headlines on CNN touch today. But there are a couple of things that I would like to go into, and Dad, you asking about PocketNet. So here's the thing. Right now, PocketNet has got their live streaming up and running, but in kind of a limited capacity. So right now, we could do a live stream on PocketNet, but there's some back-end architecture that makes it a little trickier to add it to our daily routine just yet. Basically, PocketNet does not yet give me the option to generate a persistent RMTP server connection. So unlike all the other places that we stream to, I can't just add it to the automated setup in the morning yet. We will be doing a special live stream show on PocketNet soon, and that will be a PocketNet exclusive. So the way we'll do that is we'll go live briefly on this channel. We'll announce it ahead of time. We'll go live briefly here, and then we'll post a link to the PocketNet exclusive show on all relevant social media wherever we can, including in the description of the announcement show that we do right before it on all major platforms, and then we'll go live on PocketApp.net, or PocketNet.app rather, and so we'll be doing that soon. We're just ironing out the schedule on that one, and yes, Steve, you will be invited, and hopefully you'll be joining us for that one, because that's the one we might put on our tinfoil hats a little bit for that one and go into some stuff that is verboten. Have a little fun with it.
Speaking of fun,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say let's beat this dead horse.
Well, before we do that, because I assume you're talking about looking at CNN and how just guys, I think honestly we're gonna stop doing the WTF CNN before too long, because they're becoming less and less actually relevant. They've become such parody of themselves that I I think we're just going to start laughing them off generally, and stop giving them any credence whatsoever. And I suspect that most of you that watch this show have stopped taking CNN seriously as a news source a long time ago. And let's be real, what we're doing when we do WTFCNN is we're looking at the enemy's internal propaganda. We're looking at the messaging that the tyrannical enemies of the United States of America and her sacred Constitution share among themselves. We're looking at the way that they craft their own, that they handle their own brainwashing, the way that they distribute the marching orders, the way that they use their propaganda machine to incite violence and set cities on fire. Right? Hey, we've picked out a guy that's the wrong color. We want to make sure that he cannot get a fair trial. So we need y'all to go burn down some cities for us, please. Well, what's it pay? It pays exactly as much as you can carry. That's if you want a bigger paycheck, bring a stronger back. Target's got plenty of TVs there, BLM. Help yourselves.
Or just steal one of the shopping carts while you're there.
Yeah, why not?
Two birds, one stone.
But we were talking about technology a little bit, Pocket App, and you mentioned Facebook all of a sudden running those ads. So let's go ahead and talk about this other thing for a minute. I just want to talk about it briefly. And I hadn't planned on it, but we're down that rabbit hole a little bit. Biden to censor text messages. Are y'all tracking on this? Cameron, if you heard, had you heard about this before the call this morning? Before you and I were talking this morning?
I had heard about it, and it's one of those things where if you dial the clocks back even just a couple of years, I just said, no, come on, that's too far. But now at this point in the post Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself world, and we had the most secure and awesomest election ever, yeah, sure, anything's possible. Bring on the clockwork elves, baby. I'm going to smoke a bunch of DMT and fight interdimensional aliens. Whatever.
God, that sounds like a good afternoon. Biden. So here's the article. Biden wants to censor your text messages for COVID misinformation. This article's from Red State, but this has been fact checked. This is a thing that it's trying to do. The Biden administration has failed spectacularly at their goal of getting 70% of the American population vaccinated for COVID by the beginning of July. It was unrealistic in the first place. Most Americans are not hardwired for obedience, even if COVID lockdowns proved too many people seem to be. The American, good God, am I skating on the thin ice even looking at this issue, but the American government declared in 1978 their intention to eradicate measles from our shores by 1982, and after they began distributing the vaccine en masse. We did not declare the measles statistically defeated until 2000. Right, so 18 years late. Imagine that we would vaccinate the majority of the American population in mere months was never anything but a pipe dream. But then again, the Biden administration seems to have a lot of strange substances stuffed in their pipes these days. Like, for example, loose Parmesan from the carpets.
Oh, Lord.
Now, let's rewind just a little bit. Go back and look at the pre-election. Donald Trump said we're going to have a vaccine before the end of the year, and that was constantly derided and berated as an insane pipe dream. It happened.
Yup.
In fact, it's painfully obvious that the vaccine was as ready to go as it is right now before the election.
Yes. Yes, before the most safe and secure and awesomest election of all time.
So,
everybody says I look like a bad kung fu movie.
they're right, and I have no idea how to fix that right now. I think that's more related to your internet connection than to the formatting in the show. But anyway, suffer. Sorry. Would you like me to throw some subtitles on him?
That's funny.
Anyway, so that was a pipe dream. And then Biden gets into office and says, our goal is, God, I'm losing track of the numbers now because they just make them up and fail so much. But what was it? He said, our goal is to vaccinate 1 million people a day, is to be vaccinating 1 million people a day by such and such a date. And I was like, you know, that's already happening. Right? When he said that was his goal, he said it like, you know, this is what we're going to do to be better than Donald Trump. It's like, that's what Donald Trump was doing. Like, that come on, sweetheart. What else you got? Right?
Yeah, so, like, my goal was to get out of bed. Yay! All right, I'm winning at life. Steve says the lack of the bow tie screwed up the algorithm. That's good. And I did a speed test. I've got a latency of 37 milliseconds and 10 megabyte per second upload. I don't know what the deal is, y'all. Sorry.
Well, we'll just keep trying. I mean, are you going to be with us tomorrow?
I don't know yet. I'm going to try.
Okay. Man, okay. Let me pull the CNN main page back up. It's the stream merged, not either of you. Okay. Fair enough, Steve. Wait. This is the one that I want. Okay. So, there have been a couple of big things that have happened in the last couple of days. Like the assassination of the president in Haiti. And, well, South Africa's just on fire. Right? So, could the traveling pastor with a history of humanitarian work also have masterminded an intricate murder plot to seize power in Haiti? Okay. This Christian Emmanuel Sanon, the latest American citizen to be arrested in connection to the assassination of Haiti's president, has been accused by authorities of orchestrating a complex multinational hit job in order to realize his own political ambitions. He came with the intention to take over as president of the Republic, Haitian National Police Director General Leon Charles said of Sanon in a press conference on Sunday. A presidential assassination in Haiti. You know, because of what Haiti is, I'm torn on whether or not to believe this particular narrative. So let's talk about how it went down. Apparently, somebody hired a bunch of security guys, you know, a little more than 24 of these security guys and stuff to conduct this assassination. Hired them out of Florida, out of some security firm in Florida, and used that to conduct a high-level political assassination. Well, it's high-level in Haiti. But here's the thing. This whole scheme just has CIA written all over it. It just screams spooks. But it's Haiti.
Yeah. Who cares about Haiti? I mean, no offense to any Haitians that might be watching, but you guys ain't exactly a superpower.
Right.
You're not even on track to be a superpower.
The most significant and consequential thing that Haiti has ever done was laundered a shitload of political contributions for the Clinton administration and the Clinton Foundation and the Hillary for President campaign. But, I mean, for real, Haiti's not an especially useful strategic landmass, right? It has it doesn't have an economy to speak of.
Gone are the days when sugar plantations ran the world.
And I hate to say it, Krista, but I'm not going to speculate on that in this show because it's not yet the end of August. we're a little on the tiptoes right now.
Yeah, Sean Stryker said something similar, and unfortunately, we can't quite. Nope.
Yeah.
Can't even comment on it yet.
But
we see it just.
But on the other hand, let's consider this. There was a president. Okay, it may not be a significant country. It may be a tiny country. Sean Strike. It also used to have 2 rice fields. Used to. 2. Yep. And Dad says the CIA is still protecting Clinton. God, believe that. That's a deep rabbit hole. That's the rest of the show. But we're talking about the president of a country being assassinated here, and CNN's main page. Okay, the largest headline on here is an American is accused of Haiti assassination plot and insists on his innocence. Okay, good for him. But the rest of the there's you see up in the tippy top there it says trending South Africa, and we're going to take a look at the article that comes from there. But look at the rest of this page. South Africa is on fire, guys. They're rioting, looting, and burning down. I mean, South Africa is so bad right now. It looks like it looks like a Democrat-controlled American city. They're openly looting, rioting, and murdering people in the street for political purposes. It looks like Portland or Detroit.
And race. Can't forget the race.
Oh yeah, can't forget the race there, because that's, I mean, South Africa is going through some straight up government-backed ethnic cleansing right now, and it's sickening. But what do we have on the main page of CNN here? Podcast Chasing Life. Oh, and that's this podcast down here. Let's talk about making babies or deciding not to. Shut up your noses. Make babies. It's what you're built for. So you got trending South Africa, and the rest of it is Britney Spears, Emmys. Okay, there's Cuba, wildfires, unmarked graves, moon wobble, and the Zomato IPO. How does Britney Spears... Okay, I know the whole Free Britney thing is going on, and that is actually an interesting, bizarre, and tragic case. It's a complex, interesting story. But how does that rise to the level of trending with South Africa, Cuba, and any president being assassinated? Okay, in fairness, there's not a good reason for an American to care about the president of Haiti being assassinated. There are good reasons for us to be interested in what's happening in Cuba. And the hot take on Cuba from the administration, they're protesting because they're so aggravated about the economic mismanagement of the pandemic in Cuba. They're screaming Cuba Libre, right? They're not trying to order a rum and coke with a little twist of lime, son. They're demanding freedom, liberty, right? If what they wanted was a refreshing beverage that involved a little Captain Morgan's, they'd be waving tiny paper umbrellas, not the American flag.
Yeah, and speaking of that American flag, and they also wave Gadsden flags. Gosh, isn't it funny how Hong Kong waves American
Yep.
flags, Cuba waves American
Yep.
flags? For being the most racist and oppressive patriarchal country on the planet, it's real weird. Poor minorities from socialist countries always want to come here, or they also want to emulate us. Now, to be clear, Hong Kong's not poor. Hong Kong's actually fairly wealthy, and they're seeing that wealth get transferred, one could say, redistributed. And again, they invoke America, and it's worth noting that for being the terrible, terrible place that we are, we're still the ideal. As Chris has pointed out on this show many times, we're not the final stop for freedom. We're the first toehold. We are the beachhead of freedom. Everybody should move closer to us. And it seems that that's at least what the poor plebes want to do. And Sean Stryker, and I don't want to get too far off on this, but he makes a really good point. If Britney Spears has no power, how much power do the rest of us have? I mean, the woman is $1 million revenue generating machine, and she can't even decide whether or not she wants to have more babies. So he's got an interesting point there.
He's got another interesting point here. Stryker says media is saying that the Cuba protests are CIA backed. LOL, media and their spin. Yeah, I don't know if they are or are not, but let me say this about that. Toppling communist dictatorships is actually what the CIA is supposed to do. Right?
Yeah, and even if they are interconnected, that doesn't mean that the protests aren't genuine. That's I'm almost reminded of when the Koch brothers got involved in the Tea Party movement, and everybody said, "Oh, it's AstroTurf because there's Koch money involved." Well, no, the Tea Party movement was genuine. The Koch brothers just happened to intersect with it.
Right. Damn, son, I think I'm running out of steam. Wild chase followed the assassination of Haiti's president. Growing number of Florida links to the alleged Haitian hit squad. They're really trying to pin this Haiti thing on Florida man bad. It won't be long before some of these nutbag outlets start trying to say, "Oh well, it all happened in Florida. It all originated in Florida because Donald Trump's behind it. He hired these security teams out of Mar-a-Lago." It's like, oh, that's wait, why? What does he get out of it? But you watch, somebody's going to make that claim. That's coming. That Donald Trump had the Haitian president assassinated. They're going to try to spin it that way somehow. At a minimum, it's going to be this is because of Trump's rhetoric. He incited the violence. It's like, in what way? In what way is it connected? But they're going to say it. They're going to say it.
Yeah, because Orange Man's still bad. With all this going on, with the fact that there is probable, I'm going to say probable just because the information is still unclear and will probably remain unclear. But there's probable genocide taking place in South Africa. Cuba looks like it's about to be an absolute open revolt. And what's one of the things that's the most important? Now, CNN is covering the Haiti thing, right? But it's the red herring. It's the least important of the three. What I find interesting is the one that's right here in the top, in the center, Biden. We're facing the most significant test of our democracy since the Civil War. And if you go through, the article itself is just a bunch of bullet points that say, President Biden urged Congress to pass federal voting rights legislation, calling the issue a test of our time in a major speech in Pennsylvania. Funny he picked Pennsylvania. His speech comes as the GOP-controlled legislature has moved ahead with new state laws restricting ballot access after Senate Republicans blocked a sweeping voting and election bill last month. Meanwhile, in Texas, House Democrats left the state and traveled to D.C. Monday in an effort to halt Republicans from passing a restrictive new voting law. And Vice President Kamala Harris met with Texas State House Democrats in Washington, D.C. She thanked the group for breaking the law. Just, Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Put it right next to your Parmesan cheese. And Biden even goes so far as to say we are facing the most significant test of our democracy since the Civil War. That's not hyperbole. Since the Civil War. The Confederates back then never breached the Capitol as insurrectionists did on January 6th. I'm not saying this to alarm you. I'm saying this because you should be alarmed. That's right, folks. President of the United States thinks that if you support the Georgia voter ID law that got passed, you're not as bad as the Confederates. You're worse because somehow you're automatically tied into the insurrection that never actually happened on January the 6th. It was a riot at worst. It was, and an awfully peaceful riot that it turns out that the cops let people walk into the building on. So
yeah, unlike the year and change, unlike the 14 months prior to the January 6th incident of BLM rioting. On January 6th, the only casualty was one protester who was murdered. Yes, murdered by a police officer. And just so that there's no confusion in what I'm saying here, if George Floyd was a wrongful death case, was a murder case, then what happened to Ashley Babbitt was undeniably a case of murder. Okay, because unlike George Floyd, Ashley Babbitt was not resisting an arrest when she was just straight up shot.
Oh, and she wasn't buying speedballs either, trying to pass a counterfeit $20 bill to get a pack of cigarettes to pay her drug dealer back.
And
all that.
And there are no mitigating health concerns there. As far as we know, Ashley Babbitt did not have a lethal dose of fentanyl in her system when, while kicking a police officer to shove his way through the car and get out the other side in an obvious attempt to escape from custody after having been placed lawfully under arrest. But, what do I know?
Man, we're coming up on time, I just want to touch on the whole thing with Kamala meeting with the Texas state reps who fled the state. You're tracking on the fact that Governor Abbott's like, they come back or we arrest them and we make them come back.
Yeah, and he also said that he will continue to call special session after special session after special session until the next regular session. And so they will be in violation until then. Which means that the taxpayers in Texas are going to fund these Democrats to just go spend a year partying in D.C. and not doing the job they were elected to do. And then, when the Sergeant of Arms does get to arrest them for abandoning their post, for dereliction, however the charge is phrased, what happens when they're arrested is they'll be brought in handcuffs. There'll be a big show made of it. Back to the House to vote on the bill. Right? So no matter how this goes, no matter how it goes, there are zero consequences for these people for what is legitimately a crime.
Oh no, this is going to increase their profile.
Oh, it already has.
Yeah, I mean they're meeting with the they're meeting with the freaking vice president. Like, this is nothing but win for them. They get to pander to their base, and they get access to the levers of power.
Yep. So straight up, this is crime ongoing, because what you have is these Democrats who were elected in the state of Texas. Listen, if you're elected, that doesn't mean that the only constituents you have are the ones who voted for you. It means that the ones who voted for you get to be the voice that shows which representative represents the whole. But you still represent all of the constituents that voted against you in that election. And they also pay the taxes that pay your salary for your government job that does have clear legal requirements. You are committing fraud, waste, and abuse. You are criminals. You are criminals. And there will be no consequences for your crimes. And that's disgusting.
Yeah, just philosophically, I don't necessarily have a problem with breaking the law to affect a positive outcome. Sometimes when the law is wrong, the only course of action is disobedience to that law.
Yeah, civil disobedience. And in fairness, this is a measure of civil disobedience. But in this particular case, this is a measure of civil disobedience where the civil disobedience is being involuntarily funded by taxpayers at gunpoint.
Well, I think what this really speaks to, and I want to say this very carefully for obvious reasons, these Democrats are afraid of similar voting laws being passed in Texas, because what the federal government is pushing for, or at least the current occupants of the federal government, is federal voting laws. And of course, they want to make the absentee ballots and the drop boxes and all the things that have got the highest potential point of failure. They want to make it law.
They're terrified of election security.
That's right. That's right. They are terrified of election security. And I think this actually speaks to how effective these laws are going to be. All of the whining and crying about the Georgia law, for example, speaks to how effective the Georgia law is going to be. I'd argue that the Georgia law didn't go far enough, but whatever. And that the Texas law doesn't go far enough. But it obviously represents a significant enough threat where they're willing to break the law and get the White House involved in order to avoid passing it. Maybe Texas is not about to turn blue. Maybe Texas is solidly red for another couple of decades if we conduct elections a certain way.
You mean securely? Okay, got to be careful how we go down that road. We could talk about that a little bit more aggressively, I suppose, on the PocketNet show. That'll be sometime this weekend. I've got to work it out with the boys when it'll be most convenient. The PocketNet exclusive will be a clusterfuck. For those of you who haven't seen one of those yet, it'll be somewhere between 3 and 6 of us on there, and we'll probably have a couple of cold drinks and do a hell of a show. So y'all stay tuned for that. I'll try to have the time and date announced for that on tomorrow morning's show. And we'll see you tomorrow morning. And, of course, make sure you tune in Friday morning for Firearms Friday. Y'all be safe out there, and we will see you tomorrow.